LSU lands another top transfer. Are the Tigers turning into contenders? It's Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We are free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you so much for that. Today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Ready for stress-free taxes and the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com and get matched with your expert. Markell Sutton picks the Tigers on Sunday. 24/7 ranks him as the number 52 overall player in the portal, the reigning Summit League Player of the Year from the University of Omaha. We'll tell you about Sutton, how he fits in, and if the Tigers are kind of becoming contenders, also what's left for LSU basketball now that they've added 5 transfers. What holes remain on the roster? We'll do a little assessment of that coming up here in just a smidge. Let's start, though, by talking about Marquel Sutton. If you were with us earlier this week, and for our everydayers, we talked about this, and thank you for being there. We told you when Sutton made his visit to LSU midweek. He made a midweek visit to LSU, also did a virtual visit to Nebraska. There were some other teams that he was considering, but on Sunday, LSU landed Sutton. Now, he's an interesting story because Sutton was a no-star recruit coming out of high school. And coming out of high school, he ends up signing with Connors State in Warner, Oklahoma. No clue. He goes on to average 16-9 in JUCO and then heads to the University of Omaha. First year averages 10-5. And then he continues to improve. 12-6 as a sophomore, or I guess his second year at Omaha, Then this year, he finished 3rd in the Summit League in scoring, 2nd in rebounding, 4th in field goal percentage. And as we mentioned, he was the Summit League Player of the Year, averaging 19 points and 8 rebounds per game. Not only that, the Mavericks had a really good season. They won the regular season and tournament title, went to the NCAA tournament where they lost to St. John's. So you're talking about a guy who checks a lot of boxes for Matt McMahon's squad. First and foremost, let's just look at the physical build, right? He's 6'9". So you're talking about a dude at that size who is bigger than anyone else that you had on this year's team. Now, Jalen Reed, who's 6'10", was injured, and that obviously was just a massive loss for your team because you just didn't have front court players. Sutton, 6'9", 217 is what they have him listed at. When you look at LSU's roster, Corey Chest was really the only forward that kind of filled that role, 6'8", 220, kind of a similar build. But also not nearly as productive or proficient an offensive player, and obviously not as veteran. Chest redshirted as a freshman, played this year, and I loved Corey Chest's energy, his athleticism, and his want to, especially on the glass. But he was a bit of a liability offensively for you. Corey Chest finished the season averaging just 6 points and 6 rebounds per game. Here you have a guy, Markel Fulton, who averaged 19 and 8. I get it, Summit League. So there's always this question, right, of will it translate from a mid-major to the Power 5? And there's examples to show it both ways, right? Janai Broome from Auburn started his career at Morehead State, and he ultimately became a guy that was in the running for National Player of the Year. You could look at a guy like KJ Williams. Remember, when Matt McMahon took the LSU job, KJ was the Ohio Valley Player of the Year at Murray State and came with Matt McMahon to LSU and became a very good player at LSU. I mean, he averaged 17. He was the best player on the team that year. Now, that was not a very good LSU team, but it worked. Like KJ Williams translated his skill set to the SEC. And maybe the best thing is, I know that you're going to need Markell Sutton to be the SEC Player of the Year, because it's one of the things that LSU has done here with who they brought back, who they're bringing in this portal cycle, and then also the freshmen they have coming in, is you could see how they are building this roster and filling gaps and needs, right? So you add a guy like Marquel Sutton, who is a front court guy for you, along with Mike Nwoko from Mississippi State, a 6'10", 240-pound big who's experienced in the SEC. You look at a guy like DJ Thomas from UNLV, one of the best guards one of the best overall players in the transfer portal, the number 8 overall player in the portal. That's the guy that's going to run your point. Rashad King, who's coming in from Northeastern. This is a guy who can slash and also gives you a 6'6" wing. So a guy who can get to the bucket. Max McKinnon, who you added from Portland, is a sharpshooter, right? He's a 6'6" wing who shot 42% from 3 this year at Portland, and he's 85% from the free throw line. Not going to give you a ton of defense, but it's a scorer on the wing, which helps you stretch a defense. So all the things that you can see that they're adding are very intentional with how Matt McMahon's building the roster. And here you have a player in Sutton who also has started 99 career college games. So physically, he's got a great build. He is a good offensive option for you on the block. He has played in 99 games, so he's an experienced player. And oh, by the way, he's also a winner. His team won the conference this year, both the regular season and the tournament. And he went to the NCAA tournament, so he has that experience for you as well. So as you kind of look at what they've built and what they're building right now with this roster, it's checking a lot of boxes. Again, I want to go through a bit later in the show how they're piecing this together and what they still have to do. So we're going to get to that here in just a quick second. But make no mistake, you're talking about 3 guys now in this portal class of the 5 that are in the top 80 in the country. DJ Thomas is number 8 overall, according to 24/7. Sutton is number 52 overall, according to 24/7. And then King, who we just mentioned, the transfer from Northeastern, is number 80. So 3 transfers in the top 80. Depending on what service you look at, LSU's anywhere 1, 2, 3 in the country in these transfer portal class rankings. And they're obviously doing yeoman's work right now to remake this roster. They're doing everything they said they were going to do to give Matt McMahon a roster capable of competing in the SEC. And so far they've done that. I don't think they're done just yet. I'll explain coming up in a smidge. But the real question now is, okay, you've added these 5 players. You have 3 guys coming back. You have 3 freshmen coming in. So with the way the roster looks, are you actually building a contender, or is this just a team that's better than the one that you put on the floor this year? I want to address that when we continue. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. This message is from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives you and your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert will find every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back, guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. So, with LSU adding 5 players via the portal so far, one of the big questions that I think a lot of people are asking is, okay, so what's a good expectation for this team? If they've already added 5 guys via the portal, clearly they're out there spending money. Is this a team that we think could actually be a contender? Now, I think there's different layers of this conversation. And I'm going to try not to lose you on this, and I'll try to make this as simplistic as I possibly can. But I would just hope that you'd understand, if you trust, if you're here and you've heard me talk about topics like this in the past, I feel like I have a really good finger on the pulse of what's happening with LSU in the NIL space. So a year ago, the LSU basketball team that finished second to last in the SEC, I've told you this before, they spent $1.8 million on their roster. The middle of the league was in the $5 million range. The top of the league was in the $8 million range. Well, LSU collectively went into this offseason thinking probably going to have to spend north of $5 million. As best I can tell, they were going to more than double the number from a year ago, 1.8. They were going to get north of 5, and I think that was the strategy, that they were going to feel like comfortable. They were going to be able to invest just north of $5 million and be able to build a competitive roster in 2025, 2026. Well, what's happened just with the way the calendar is, with revenue share very likely to be approved, the House settlement approved, and revenue share going into effect this summer, similar to what we saw in the football portal cycle with all these collectives dumping money into the market right now to front load deals. Because remember, if revenue share is approved, as we all assume it will be, then the pay for play disguised as NIL, as we come to see it through these collectives, that goes away. That's no longer legal. So you have all these collectives that have fundraised that are sitting on millions of dollars. Well, what do you do with it? Well, you spend it all now before you can't spend it. So you're seeing the market increase dramatically because collectives are spending more freely because they got to. So what a player a year ago might have cost $1.2 million, this year might be getting $2.5 million. And teams that might have been spending $7-8 million this year, as I understand, the top of the conference, they're expecting to be in the $10 to $12 million range. So you're going to see Kentucky and Arkansas and Auburn, like the top of the league, getting north of $10 million for their basketball rosters. And I'm here to tell you, LSU is not going to be in that mix. So if you're wondering, is LSU going to be a national contender like those teams? No, not spending wise. Now, football, LSU is in that mix for this coming football season among the wealthiest rosters in college football. That's not going to be the case in basketball. But I think what's been very intentional is moving LSU out of the bottom and somewhere into that competitive tier in the core of the league, and make sure that you're sensible and strategic with who the players you're bringing in, and hope that your staff can coach them up. I think that's the approach here. They're clearly not bargain shopping. I mean, DJ Thomas from UNLV is someone literally everybody. You beat Kentucky and Florida for him. I mean, that's a guy everybody wanted. I mean, Markell Sutton's a guy that had major school offers. It's just a remarkable thing what money can do. And that's what LSU is doing right now. They've committed to spending money for basketball. So I believe what we're seeing is collectively LSU's powers that be, the collective, the coaching staff, all came into this offseason feeling they were going to be able to spend around $5 million and build a competitive roster. And through this process has realized it's probably going to take more. So I think you're going to see that number tick even higher. When the roster's set, and I feel like I'm comfortable saying a number, I'll certainly tell it to you if I have it, but I don't have it right now. What I will very comfortably tell you is they're going to get over $5 million on this basketball roster. And they're not done yet. They're still going to add at least another player. So, is that going to be enough to allow you to compete at the highest level? Probably not. Like, I'm not looking at LSU and thinking this is a team that's going to be a Final Four team. I got to ask the question, about Marquel Sutton. Is that going to be a guy that translates, into the SEC, who could be a conference player of the year type player? Maybe, but probably not. I mean, the Janai Broome example is an outlier, but I love situations like this. This is one of the reasons that I'm very pro transfer portal and pro NIL. I mean, a guy like Markell Sutton in a previous era would not have had this opportunity, even though he's a late bloomer. So you have a guy that had no offers, goes coming out of high school, goes JUCO, continues to work, continues to develop physically and technically, and then becomes the conference player of the year at Omaha, and now has an opportunity to make money and play in the Power 5 for a year in the best conference in the country and put on for NBA scouts and see what his ceiling can be. Like, that's a good thing for a guy like Markell Sutton. It's not his fault that he physically wasn't developed at 17 and instead was more developed at 21, 22. So this is just a great opportunity for him, and it's going to be to LSU's benefit as well. So the other piece of it, though, that I think has worried some, as I kind of read the tea leaves and I see your comments in the show and in the comment section, and thank you for those comments, or when you tweet me or you hit me on my text line, is LSU robbing Peter to pay Paul? Like, are they, in essence, taking money that would be going to other sports that people would, like football, would like to see win more, to buy a basketball roster? And I will tell you flatly, the answer is no. I mean, very clearly, y'all, LSU spent in the transfer portal for football. They landed the number one portal class in the country because they went and spent a boatload of money. There wasn't anybody else they wanted that they didn't get or couldn't afford. So no, that's not where they are right now. This is something where in a moment in time, a lot of circumstantial things came together. They all just sort of collided at the right opportunistic moment that's going to benefit LSU. What I mean is, for 3 years in NIL, LSU was lagging behind. I mean, I said that for 3 years. A lot of LSU fans didn't like me saying that. And now you're hearing by their own admission, LSU administrators telling you, yes, there was a long period where LSU was behind in fundraising and NIL for various reasons. Well, a couple of things changed. Last summer, when TAF became the fundraising arm of Bayou Traditions, that completely accelerated the fundraising for the collective. And you can say, why didn't they do that before? Well, because everybody's fundraising against each other. It's an oddity, because when you look at it, everyone is, all these groups, TAF, the LSU Foundation, the collective, the Alumni Association, they're all singularly focused and aligned on the same goal of helping LSU win, but they all exist independent of each other, so they all have to fundraise. Well, they're all generally calling on the same people, so you have a lot of donor fatigue. And so TAF didn't necessarily want to help Bayou Traditions fundraise, because TAF needs to fundraise for its projects. But ultimately, what the decision they came to, which is best for LSU and to win, is the collective had to be more robust. And so TAF helping the collective fundraise was massive. And then the Bryce Underwood situation. When LSU saw Bryce Underwood flip, it was a very jarring moment for a lot of LSU fans to realize, oh, like, this really can happen. And so it spurned a lot of the LSU boosters and benefactors into action, and it dumped a whole nother layer of cash in that pot to be able to go spend. And naturally, it freed up money as well that you had earmarked for Bryce Underwood and Jakeem Stewart. So you were able to go spend that money on other portal players for football, and it freed up more money to give to sports like basketball. So it's all circumstantial in how it happened in this one moment in time that's allowing LSU to dump money into the basketball portal class right now that isn't going to affect football or any other sport, because revenue share will be going into effect for next school year, the 25-26 school year. So they're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. LSU football is in great shape, and they're able to now allow LSU basketball to be in a much healthier spot as well. And I feel like I have to throw out the caveat every time we talk about this, but I'm not saying definitively that this is going to work and they're going to nail it. But what I'm saying is, with the roster you had, nobody was going to win. And now you're at least giving Matt McMahon a shot because he's got a loaded roster, and you can say, the baseline expectation for 2025, 2026 with this roster is you have got to be in the NCAA tournament. LSU has got to hear their name called on Selection Sunday next year. If not, then there's no realistic expectation that Matt McMahon would ever be able to get it done. I, for one, think Matt McMahon's a really good coach. He's made 3 tournaments during his time at Murray State. It would have been 4, but for the COVID year. They won the league. He's a fantastic basketball coach. Sometimes fit and circumstance have to matter, and maybe that won't work at LSU. But I think you give a good coach like that the players that they are right now, and you're certainly have much better results. And I think a baseline expectation of being in the NCAA tournament is fair. And I think it's one that they'll, with this roster, should be able to achieve next year. So let's take a look at the roster as we continue. We're glad you're with us here. It's Locked On LSU, your team every day. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. And there's easy collaboration. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever because you can track shared and personal accounts. You can set goals. You can stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. So what's next for LSU basketball here? Let's take a little bit of an assessment of the roster and where they sit right now. So we know that LSU currently has 3 players returning from this most recent year's roster. Okay, you've seen obviously a handful of players go into the transfer portal, but the Tigers are going to return Jalen Reed, who's coming off of injury, and as we know, he was averaging 11-6 at the time of his torn ACL. But Jalen Reed coming back, Curtis Givens, who played in 32 games this year, averaged just 4 points, just under 5 points a game. But Givens is back, and then Robert Miller is back as well. Miller played in 32 games, averaged 4 points and 3 boards. That's another big body. So as you start to kind of look at how the roster is going to shape out, right? Whenever you're talking about a guy like Miller, who's a 6'10", 220-pound freshman, he'll continue to grow and get bigger next season. Mike Nwoko, and then obviously Markell Sutton. That's 3 bigs that gives you depth, size and depth and experience in the post. So those 3 are returning. Reed, Givens, and Robert Miller. Now, you're also adding a freshman signing class, that includes 3 players. Forgive me. I had the wrong window open. My apologies. So you're bringing in 3 players. You have Mozzie Mosley, who's out of Napa, the number 72 overall player in the country. This is from 24/7. Jalen Reese out of Orlando. By the way, Mosley's a shooting guard, so it's a 2-guard. He's a 6'5" 2-guard who can fill it up. Reese is a point guard, a 6-foot point guard, number 79 in the country, the number 11 point guard. And then you have Matt Gillul from Philadelphia, who's the number 90 player nationally. He's a big 6'10", 205. He's a power forward. So as you start to kind of look at how they're putting all the roster together, you could see the freshman class, a shooting guard, a point guard, and a power forward. Look at the 5 players you've already added via the transfer portal. You've got 2 forwards, you got a point guard, and you've got 2 6'6" wing players. One of them that's a slasher, one of them that's a shooter, but both of them give you offense. And then you look at who you have coming back, as we just mentioned, with Reed and Miller, who are bigs, and then obviously Givens, who's a guard. So when I look at what's remaining, and I was kind of asking around today, there's a couple of things that you need to consider. One is the new scholarship number. And I don't think this is something we've talked enough about, but next year, 25-26, college basketball teams are allowed to go from 13 to 15 scholarships. Now, remember, you're still capped with revenue share when it goes into effect. So while you can add more scholarships, you can't add more money on your revenue share. So the question is, do you want to add more scholarship players for basketball and take a larger chunk of your revenue share pie to give to basketball? Or are you good with 12 or 13 maybe scholarship players, similar to the number that you're at right now? And as best as I can understand, the general consensus around college basketball, and certainly around the SEC among coaches, is 15 is excessive. I don't know that you're going to see SEC basketball programs go to 15 scholarships next year, even though you can, because they're not going to take the revenue share money. Because if that pie is only so big that's allocated for basketball, think of it, if just hypothetically, let's say You have $1 million in rev share for basketball. Just you use a round number. If you have $1 million in rev share for basketball and you have 12 players that you're dividing it among, or if you have 15 players and you're dividing the same million, everybody's piece of the pie shrinks. So is it worth it is the question you have to ask. Is it worth it to have those extra players? And as best I've been able to gather, overwhelmingly, coaches do not believe 15 is the best way of sort of capitalizing on your salary cap. So I think you're going to see teams lock into 11 to 13 scholarship players. I think that's where LSU is going to land. So as you look at it right now, you've got the 3 returning players that I mentioned, and you have the 3 incoming freshmen, that's 6. And then you've got the 5 transfers that you've already added, that's 11. The one thing that I believe they're still looking at and will add if they have the opportunity is going to be a 2 or a 3, another scorer, either a shooting guard or a scoring wing to give some depth. I don't think they're looking for a starter. I think they're looking for depth, maybe someone that can come off the bench and give them offense on the wing off the bench. So if you're looking for it, that's probably one more position that they'll add. And they're not, I don't think you're going to see multiple more additions for the reason we just talked about with scholarships and the revenue share. But if the right player is there that can give them depth at the 2 or the 3, I think they'll pop one more. And that would put them at 12 scholarship players as of now for the 2025-2026 season. But the basketball Tigers making waves here in this offseason. And listen, money is one heck of a bargaining tool. And I know last week when Blaine Bradford from Catholic High committed to Ohio State, boy, there was a lot of melt from y'all. Not everybody, but you know who you are. How could he's greedy just taking the money? Yeah. Everybody's taking the money. Now, I don't think Bradford's deal was financial. I think LSU put a great offer financially on the table for Blaine Bradford. But NIL is part of every recruitment. And you need look no further than the fact that LSU just signed the number 1 transfer portal class in the country in football. And this basketball program, which is a joke right now, you are 3-15 in the conference. You are run out of the gym almost every night. You have moments of historical significance, but over the last 25 years, those have been fleeting. You've got little fan interest, a dilapidated old building, and you're out here signing the number 1 or 2 transfer portal class in the country? Why do you think that is? It ain't because Markell Sutton loves gumbo, y'all. It's because they're spending money. We'll see if it'll net them a positive result on the floor next basketball season. But I'll tell you this much. Undeniably, this is undeniable. Whether you think they'll win more or not, whether you like Matt McMahon or not, that we'll find out in time. But the thing that's undeniable is they're interesting. And they were not interesting for the entirety of this season. They have my, your, and everyone else in the country's attention right now for the way they've gone about this portal cycle. It's going to be fun. Okay, y'all, that do it for us here. If you're listening on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And remember also, thanks for making us your first listen. For your second listen, how about Locked On NFL Draft? As your favorite college players get ready for the next level, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every single day. You can find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you every single day for Locked On LSU, your team every day.